Hello everybody, this is Alvin and welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing something special because we just hit 1,700 subscribers. Thank you very much for your trust and for following this channel for you to learn more about gender and sexuality. But today we're going to do something different. As you can see, there are some food in the table. We've got some kimchi and we've got some baby potatoes, marbled potatoes. All right, so this food is from Meat Perfection. It's from my friend Miko, who is uh, very gracious enough to, let me taste this. This is not sponsored, by the way. I bought them, but they are so delicious. I actually like kimchi. I like kimchi a lot. It's just that my friends don't, so I'm the only one who wants to eat this. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to answer some of the questions that you asked using hashtag Alvin. Questions actually came from my Twitter followers and my social media followers, also in Instagram and YouTube. Some of them came from celebrity friends, so you're gonna know later who they are. All right, so let's start answering the questions while eating this. Right, the first question is how to deal with homophobic relatives. Ooh. There are tons of them in the world, and sadly, some of them are in your close circles. They're like friends or relatives or even family members. And how to deal with them. My apologies, by the way, before we proceed. You might be hearing some banging in the walls. I don't know. My neighbor is doing something. It has been days. Every day, like I wake up with this banging in the wall and all this construction work. I think there are some level of homophobia, degree of homophobia. There are just some people who might be homophobic, but they are not too vocal about it. So that I actually, when they see one, they just go, out, or they do something else. They just, they divert their attention to something. But there are some homophobics or homophobes. There's some homophobes that are really like rabid. Like they're really gonna get into you. And these are the type of people that you have to be very careful, because they are the ones who's going to engage, and they're not gonna let you go until you're bruised. And like bruised, when I say bruised, like emotionally bruised or even sometimes physically bruised. So these are the types of people that you have to, it's either you engage them, or don't. My answer is don't. It's when you engage them, you give them the platform, you validate them. And that's one thing that they want. They want, the attention that they're getting from people invalidating them or telling them that they're actually wrong. So it's no different from trolls or the trolling. But when the homophobes are starting to physically attack you, then you have to do something about it. And unfortunately, in the Philippines, there is still no protection against stigma and discrimination on LGBTQIA people. And that's one thing that we have to work on. But there are several cities in the Philippines that have anti-discrimination ordinances. Among them, like Quezon City, Cebu, and there's like only around 15 to 17% of the entire archipelago that actually has an anti-discrimination ordinance. I do hope that in the future that we are going to have anti-discrimination laws on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. So every LGBTQIA people and even non-gender conforming individuals will be protected from this stigma and discrimination that we are experiencing. So my answer to that question is don't engage. As much as possible, don't bring up the topic, or try to do something else. So while before we move on to the next question, I'm glowing in my video. Something to do with the lights, I guess. I'm like overexposed or kinukuha na ako ni Lord. What kind of situations within organizations lead to them deciding to hire you as a consultant? Oh, okay. So this is more of a professional one. What kind of situations? In my experience, Philippine government agencies usually hire me like 95% of them, and then the 5% are private agencies. Because there are several policies in place. For example, like there is a law that they need to follow, and they're being audited on it. That's actually their cue to hire an external consultant because they are not knowledgeable in the matter. And the other situations perhaps would be one of my experiences that they had multiple cases of sexual harassment in the workplace, and they contacted me to actually help them develop the anti-sexual harassment or the anti-sexual harassment policy in the workplace. I would argue that communicating in pandemic via Zoom style FaceTime is exactly like a long distance relationship. How do you think they are different? Well, actually, they are not different in terms of the what I call this, the medium that's being used. It's the same medium that you use when you are in a long distance relationship. It's actually hard to get when you're answering questions this stuff. Yeah. So it's not actually totally different, but when you are in a long distance relationship, there are other means other than all these technological things. Some resort to sending love letters, and others they don't have any communication. So that's, I think, the difference of long distance relationship. But actually, in terms of the medium that you're using, it's actually the same. And of course, their communication during the time of the pandemic, not everyone that you're communicating with are your significant others. Some of them are for professional purposes. I guess that's it. And question from Sharep Nangbird. This is from Twitter, so it's an outer account. Okay. What kind of videos will you be doing next, since you can't do reaction vids for other BL shows because you're joining one already? Okay. Well, I didn't say that I'm gonna be part of a BL series. I just say I'm gonna be part of a certain show, right? I'm gonna keep you hanging. Yeah, I recently decided to join one show, and I actually don't know yet what my exact role is, but I'm kind of excited because the show is promising. I'm not gonna spill some teas regarding that, but I will definitely, give you my thoughts on it. Joining, a show or a certain series will actually not prevent me from reacting to different BLJ and peer series, because when I react to this series, I don't react them on a technical level, like on the acting of the actors. That's not what I'm doing. I'm actually just highlighting the issues that each of this series raise and talk about it more. So I guess that's where the gray area is. So I guess I can still react to this video. To this. I can still react to this series. Well, if you don't want me to react anymore, you tell me. You comment below. Question from Mike. How many GFs and DFs have you had? Oh, All right. Mike's question is not, you know, Mike's question is not professional. It's just one right in. Okay. How many GFs am I going to have? I had two. Are we talking about the serious ones, not the flirtations? All right. Okay, the serious ones. I had two serious girlfriends, and I think I had three serious boyfriends. My current relationship right now is a boyfriend. Before that was a girlfriend, and then before that was boyfriend. So it's, I don't know. In my experience, like boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. I don't know. It's something that's incidental, I guess. But for bisexuals out there, it's not the same for everyone. Okay, there might be some of you who have relationships that are all boys, and then you had suddenly girls, and then you can also have all girls and then boys. And the question about that is, are you still attracted to both men and women? And this attraction is not as same as always. There are like different levels of attraction. Uh, so, for example, I'm more. I don't. In my experience, I'm like more sexually attracted with boys and more romantically attracted with girls. So that's my experience. But some it's more of like balance emotionally and then sexually. Okay, so I had two girlfriends and three boyfriends. Don't ask me about the flirtations because those I lost count. Yeah, the first flirtation was when I was 18 years old. All right. What else? I'm giving you more information than the question. How long are my relationships? My relationships would be around 6 months to max of 3 years in my experience. The last the last longest relationship that I had was 3 years, but unfortunately my ex died. Oh, we got a question from Miko, the one who sold me these things. Sorry. So some of you might not want me to do this eating while talking, because in some cultures it's nasty at the same time disrespectful. But anyway, I'm gonna do this because I love it. This is my channel anyway. So reveals doing it. I can tie. Okay. So Miko asks, what tips can you suggest for the straight and LGBT people to come together and put down the invisible wall that separates them in social settings? Wow, the question is wow. By the way, Miko is a philanthropist. He's a singer and a host. I've seen some of the shows. So do you follow him in social media? He's one of my celebrity friends. Okay. Okay, Mika, to answer that question, talk about something that's non-polarizing. Example, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. So those two are the most polarizing topics that you are going to ask or that you're going to raise in any social event. So one thing that I noticed that when you raise these two questions, it's usually very personal, and that is going to be very difficult because the conversation tends to be more argumentative and confrontational. If you want to have small talks. Perhaps what you can do is talk about your interests. What are the things that you both of you are in common with? So those are the things that you can actually start talking. And when you find out that you have more commonalities than differences, man, being LGBT and being heterosexual doesn't even matter at all. You are both human beings who just love, for example, food. You love sports. You love tons of different things. So you focus on something that you are very interested, like hobbies or things that you actually do, and that's where you take off. And then he has a follow-up question. What advice can you give to some LGBT people who enjoy assuming, judging, and stereotyping other people's sexual identity? Ooh, deep. Right. I have been advocating this for the longest time. I've been advocating, and whenever I do talks, especially when I do talks about LGBT and reducing stigma and discrimination, I've been saying this for a lot of times. Discrimination and stigma should reduce from the inside. Because there are actually some people, LGBTQIA people, who actually stigmatize and discriminate other people based on their sexual orientation and gender identity, or even in their sexual acts or behaviors. It's kind of a culture where they are used to being the subject of the ridicule, and for some they kind of they gain power and recognition where when they are the ones doing it. And one thing that I can tell you is that we have to grow empathy. We need to feel that hurt. We need to feel that, embarrassment. We need to feel that time wherein we were the subject of those ridicule. And now put yourself into someone else's shoe, whether that person is heterosexual or LGBT or whoever, right? And when you do that, you tend to become, more conscious of your actions and your words. You become more gracious, and you have a more open mind. That's why I don't use the term gaydar. I used to do that before, but now I don't. Because gaydar is actually something that's, for me, stigmatizing. It's actually stereotyping. You are actually like, you have certain checklists or perceptions of how of how men should behave, and therefore if they don't behave in those categories or check boxes that you create, that's already putting you judging them or stereotyping them into believing that they might not be straight. But this is a different time, and this is a different setting, and you can't judge a person based on his or her external behavior, a manner of speaking, choices of clothes or music, and all of these things are just teeny part of his or her personality. It doesn't talk or doesn't really reflect his or her sexual orientation and gender identity, because that one is internal, and only the person who experiences that can determine his or her sexual orientation and gender identity. The one thing that you see from the outside, that can be changed. That is actually influenced by a lot of factors. Fashion, it's influenced by trends, it's influenced by social groups of where he or she actually grew up. It's influenced by policies. There are policies in place, for example, in the office where biological women should look like this, biological men should look like this, and therefore a trans individual a trans person, you might not be able to identify him or her as trans because he is actually or she is actually conforming to the policies in place, right? And what else? Culture also plays a big role in shaping, gender expression. So everything that you see from the outside is, well, it's only a small portion of who or she really is. And sometimes what you see from the outside is not really who they are. Discussion would be from Nate. Nate is a colleague of mine from Psychomilk, and his question is, kung nasa harapan mo yung crush mo, anong gusto mong sabihin sa kanya? This question. Okay, I've got some crushes in our relationship right now with my partner. It's okay to express that you have crushes. It's just normal, and I would encourage him to actually voice it out because that's normal. You feel attraction, but you're not gonna do or act on it. When you started to act on that feeling or that certain attraction, there you're going to have a problem because you have a commitment. What will I say? Hi. Oh, baby, putik. No, I guess I'm interested to know him or her and his or her interests. So most probably I'm gonna ask a lot of things that interest him, and then see if those are my interests as well. And then if we have the same, then voila, we're friends. Sometimes when you have a crush and you started forming this relationship with them, that certain feeling that you have, like, for that person decreases and it becomes platonic because you already know that person. So once you get to be close with a person, the feelings that you have for them actually becomes more of friendship rather than something else. Next question is from Harry. Have you been in a relationship? Yes, I do. I did. And these relationships, it's kind of difficult for me to form relationships, romantic relationships, because I'm a less trusting individual. So every time that someone would say that he or she likes me, I kind of doubt that first. I don't believe on it. I don't know. That's because I've got a lot of trust issues. So it's kind of difficult for me to actually form a romantic relationship because I would always see the end of the relationship, and it kind of discouraged me to pursue. Ano po yung pinakamasakit na breakup? So what's the most painful breakup that I experienced and what I learned from it? Most painful breakup. One thing that I learned about breakups is that it depends on your certain level of attraction to that person. There are some breakups that are kind of easy for me, and some breakups were harder because in those relationships, I was the one emotionally more involved and invested, and there are some relationships that I am not too involved. My partner was. So it's harder for him or her, but it's not for me. I guess the most painful would be the first, because I don't know that feeling yet. So I guess that would be the most painful of them all. Napakain tuloy ako ng kimchi. Okay, I'm gonna eat kimchi. Man, those questions are tough. What did I learn in those breakups? Every breakup is a learning moment for me. I learned about myself, how I cope with stressful situations, how I respond to arguments. I learned how to be more empathic. I learned how to communicate better. I learned how to appease my partner. I'm a pretty prideful guy, so it's kind of difficult for me to say sorry. So, hello, Cairo. So, it's very difficult for me to say sorry, but I learned that when you are in a relationship, some of these things you have to compromise. If you want to keep the relationship, if you want to make the relationship work. So that's the thing that I learned. I learned a lot actually. So every relationship that I had, both in men and women, made me realize a lot of things. He also asked me, what is my greatest weakness? Oh, what's my greatest weakness? That's a huge that's a huge question because you can interpret it in many things. Like what's my kryptonite? I don't know. For physically speaking, I guess for guys, I'm into soft boys. So not too soft, but not too masculine. I just don't like too mask guys. My other weakness is food. I love eating. So you have to feed me. If you're a good cook, uh, then we can be friends. We can be more than friends. Okay, my body is growing. I'm a big boy. Because I love eating. I love sweets, by the way. So that's another about my weakness. Another weakness I have brainy. Not totally or too intelligent, but someone who thinks, someone who is a critical thinker. So that's one of my weakness. So if we can have a very good discussion, intellectually speaking, you have my interest as well. He has another question. What is your skincare? The skincare routine. Let me drink for a while. Okay. I don't have basically like a rigid skincare routine, but when I was actively performing before, I would usually go to a dermatologist and get some facial. That's my skincare. Product that I choose in my body, nothing that's specific, but I do Kojic soap. Um, it's not because it makes me whiter, because I'm already white, but it kinds of eliminates the odor, and at the same time it helps me prevent the acne breakout. So that's why I like Kojic soap. And just recently my partner bought me some skincare products, and I forgot the name of the product. I started using them. If you're seeing my face, it's like glowing and all. Yeah, it's because of that product. I'm gonna show you that in the future if you like it. So comment below if you like to know more about the skincare product. A question from Kat De Castro. What advice can you give to your 12-year-old self? Difficult na question. Like, Tito Boy? Tito Boy version. Or like, what's, how RuPaul does it? Like, here's your picture when you're younger. Can you say something about, like, can you say something to him? Like, gonna make me cry. Okay, what can I say to my 12-year-old self? I have already undergone a lot of difficult things in life when I was 6. So now that I'm 12, it made me more mature in dealing with things because I've seen the world in a different light. I've experienced a lot of pain and suffering for like around 5, 6 years of my life. And from 12 years old onwards, what I'm just going to say is you are going to go through a lot harder than before, more emotional, more difficult challenges. And one thing that you need to do is believe in yourself, believe that you can do it, and at the same time, believe in your capabilities. But don't use those capabilities to trample on the rights of other people, to trample on the opportunity of other people. You have to play the game fair. You also have to love more, understand people more. There are times that you might be able to say words that are pretty hurtful. And one thing that you will notice later on is that you have the power of the words. You have the power to shape people's lives because of the way you say the words, the way you deliver them, the way you are, emotionally charged, and how you connect your abilities to that. So continue moving forward, love more often, smile more often, find the goodness in everything, even in the small things. Talk to yourself more. Even though they say that you might sound crazy, but talk to yourself more, reassess yourself every now and then, reassess your values, ground yourself, surround yourself with good people, because there will be a lot of people that will try to manipulate you, try to use your capabilities, or try to use your clout, try to use your talents. Just have to be smarter than them. You always have to be like 1, 2, and 3 steps ahead of them, so that you won't be able to feel hurt. Next question would be from Rose Ann Pasqua. Rose Ann Pasqua played the role of Cheche in Chasing Sunset. And she asked me this question: if you'll be given a chance to have a superpower, what would it be and why? I like to possess the power to manipulate time. I fancy that a lot. Like freeze time, or to go back in time. That's one thing that I really love. Either time traveling, or I watch a lot of those videos in YouTube and documentaries. So time traveling is one of the coolest powers, or I mean, time manipulation is one of the coolest powers I'd like to have. Why? Because I'd like to have some information firsthand. I'd like to travel back in time to the times of the drug pollution in the Philippines, experience it. That's why when I was young, I kept watching Bayani, because they travel in different era of the Philippines, and they meet these people, like they exist, right? And for me, I love that. I love to experience that. I also would like to travel in the future and be able to see what the future holds for us. I also like to manipulate time and freeze them, so that I'll be able to have others when they in trouble or something. Dominic. Aura Dominic played the role of Lara in Chasing Sunsets. Her question is, what else do you want to do that is not in any way related to my job now? Okay. I think I mentioned this in one of my reaction videos. I wanted to go back to hosting and professional hosting and professional singing. And perhaps I'd like to venture into acting. Those are the things that I love to do. And what else that I'd like to do? Perhaps not professionally, but I'd like to go back to my drawing. So I guess for everybody who's watching, I'm a cartoonist. So I drew anime. I created my own anime when I was 8. Oh no, 10. And I still have the story in my head, and I wasn't able to finish that. But yeah, I did comic strips before, and I became a layout artist for our school paper. But I'm more inclined to doing professional hosting, singing, or perhaps acting in the future. So if I'll be given a project to do that, those are the things that I like to venture on. Aside from this very cerebral jobs that I have right now, I'm a researcher, I'm a consultant, and all. My brain is drying up. Yeah, the last question is coming from Christoph Garcia. Christoph plays the role of Bench in Kumusta Bro. He is also a former media man of ADGender. His question is, what is your favorite number in the electric fan and why? That's a silly question, but I love it. My most favorite number is number 3, the strongest of them all, because I want it strong. I want it like all in. I want all fours. Yeah. So why? Yeah, because it's pretty hot in the Philippines, and I don't want to be in a very humid place or warm place. That's one of my weaknesses. Can put me in an air conditioned room and I can stay there for days. But if you put me in a warm place, I'm gonna melt like literally. I would not survive. So I have an AC, and then I also have my electric fan pointing at me in number 3 in the highest number. Thank you everybody for all that question to my celebrity friends, to my followers in my social media accounts. Thank you very much for asking me that question, and I'm going to continue eating this kimchi and this baby potato until next time, until our next episode of Ask Alvin. So I'm expecting that you're going to ask more. If you have some questions that you'd like for me to answer in the next video, comment below, share your thoughts, laugh with me, and we're going to see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.